indicative. Then the last one is a very prominent issue. In particular, it was already an issue before COVID, but then with almost 2 years of lockdown, with a very long closure of school, the issue of teenage pregnancy is really a massive problem that we all need to address. So this would be the third area of this call. So really those priorities are aligned with our priority in the country that is captured in the multi-annual indicative program that I mentioned earlier. And this tool, this support to civil society organization has to be seen as one of the part of our multiple tool to support and implement our cooperation with Uganda for the years to come. So again, thank you very much for your participation in this event. I hope you'll find it very interesting. I hope this session will generate a lot of interest from you, and that we will receive a very good and interesting concept note and then proposal. So in order to address those key priorities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Once again, we don't have a specific timetable for this event. What we shall do is we shall run through a presentation that we have put together as a team, and we'll give you the apologies, and then we'll give you the opportunity to ask questions or clarifications, whichever you see. Please don't leave this room if you still have a question. Of course, you will still have the opportunity to share it with us online, but of course, it's always better to, have a question in the room and then we have a discussion around it. I would encourage you to keep your masks on as much as possible, or keep your social distance if you can. I have my mask, of course, I'm just alone here. Keep your social distance. These are guidelines given to us by the Ministry of Health. That's why you are just about 4 people or 5 maximum sitting at every table. And we will try to finish this session as much as possible by midday today. We will only have a break tea. We will not have lunch. And I believe the places of convenience are just outside this room. You keep going round. When you take a left, and to the left you will probably, I think you will locate them easily if you just keep left. I think with those few administrative announcements, I think we can start our presentation. As we go along with the presentation, if you have questions of clarification or something you did not quite hear, something you did not quite get, please feel free to raise your hand instead of keeping it to the end of the 1-hour presentation. By then you might have forgotten the point or thought it might not be important. Thank you very much. So we will start our session. As I said, this is normally what happens when a call for proposal is launched. I may go in some detail to explain certain concepts because we have had a look at the questions we are already receiving, questions for clarification, and some partners are asking questions that might seem very basic to some of us, but it's always better to clarify it. What happens when a call for proposal is launched is midway, about after a couple of weeks, we have what is called an information session to explain the guidelines to potential applicants and also to give them the opportunity to ask questions and get clarifications. And it might also happen that for us from the EU delegation, there are issues we have placed in, we have indicated in the call for proposals that are not clear enough, or that might need some adjustment. So this is also an opportunity for both parties. So if there's an issue you think is needs a bit of clarification there, you'll ask the questions, and we also from our side, there are issues we will pick up from your side that we will also farm up from us. And normally we don't have a record per se of this meeting. What we have a list of questions that you have asked, and we respond to these questions also again in writing, and then we publish them on the dates that we shall tell you. Okay? I hope that is clear. As we move to slide number 2. My head of section has already indicated the funds available for this particular call for proposal, which, by the way, is the first call for proposal that we are running after the COVID pandemic, after COVID-1 and COVID-2. We didn't have the opportunity in 2020 because Uganda did not get an allocation. So we have a total of about 5,050,000 euros for this call. We have split these funds into 3 lots, and we have split 1 lot into 2 sub-lots. Now, we already have a question that is asking, what are these lots? It's like there is a pot of money or a box of money. Now, the lots are like smaller boxes that you put in this bigger box, okay? That just divides it better. That is what a lot is. The first lot will have, we have allocated 1 million euro. The second lot, 2,075,000. With the 2 sub-lots, as you can see. And the third lot, 1,975,000 euros. And please note that even after the evaluation of the concept notes or the full proposals, the EU may not award all the available funds. It might happen that the concept notes, or more specifically the full proposals that are received, are not of a sufficient quality that is expected. So the EU still reserves the right not to award 100% of the funds. So please, as you prepare your submissions, do bear that in mind. We have not yet experienced such a scenario, but it is always better to be safe than sorry. We mention it to you that submissions should be of a high quality and should meet all the minimum requirements that we are still to see as we go ahead with this presentation. The overall, can we have the next slide, please? The overall objective of this call is to enable local civil society organizations to engage as actors of governance and development in Uganda. I will not explain that in detail now, because as we go ahead to discuss the objectives, the specific objectives and the activities and the rationales, then we shall be able to understand that better. I believe also that those seated here have had the opportunity to look at the guidelines, which were published on the 7th of April. My colleague Nicola has already mentioned that there are 3 specific objectives under this call. It is these 3 objectives that we package together actually to guide the apportionment in the different 3 lots. The first objective is to support social accountability for service delivery. The second objective is to promote youth empowerment and participation in policy and development processes. And the third objective is to prevent and respond to teenage pregnancies. I see there's a typo there at the end of the second objective. Delete the second and. So we go to the next slide, please. On the priorities for this call. even as you select which objective your organization is particularly interested in applying for, please bear in mind that there are themes or priorities that will guide. I will not use the word override because it doesn't override, but there are priorities that you need to take into consideration as you prepare your submission. The first point is that the issue of working with local and grassroots CSOs. We cannot underline this more. This, for the European Union, is a global issue of importance. We have been, we have been reminded that as going forward, we really need to prioritize the issue of working with local and grassroots CSOs. So as you prepare your submissions, please do bear that in mind. Is there a mic that is, needs to, okay, maybe the wind? There's some interference, okay. The second issue of importance, which is a priority of this call, is still to do with the local and grassroots CSOs. The issue of capacity building for local and grassroots CSOs. So as you prepare your submission, don't just place the local or grassroots CSOs in there as partners or beneficiaries. You need to be able to illustrate that actually your submission will also, amongst other things, enhance the capacity of these local and grassroots organizations that you will work with, whether as partners, whether as a co-applicant, or as beneficiaries. And the third point is that your submission will use a rights-based and gender-sensitive approach. In the world of NGOs and civil society, I think we don't have to explain this much. You take into consideration issues of human rights. You use a human rights-based approach. I think you're much more conversant in using this kind of approach and a gender-sensitive approach. You should be, your organization or your submission should also illustrate that there will be benefit across the genders, that you take into consideration the different gender needs amongst the communities that you seek to work with. Okay, so these are very important, and they will either come to bless or to haunt you later as you do, as you're going through the evaluation. So the next slide. The first point, yes, Richard, there's a question here. Can we have a mic? Is it yes, please, there's a question here for clarification.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I was just asking if you could probably define for us what you mean by local and grassroots. Is local about local as in Uganda, or local as in Gulu and Kitugum, or local as in the sub-county? So what is the level of local, but also maybe those two, local and grassroots?
The issue of local CSOs, this is defined also by the NGO Act of 2016 about national-based, that is really local. I think colleagues here in the room are much more conversant with exactly which provision. I know it is defined. When we talk about local, we are really referring to the indigenous, the national organizations here. This is what we are referring to. I hope that is clear. The second point is really the grassroots civil society organizations. If we take one step back, and the European Union has defined civil society organizations in a nutshell as not-for-profit, non-violent, okay? And I think there's a third statement there. Non-violent, not-for-profit. I'll remember it normally when you're here in the driver's seat or in the firing line. So when you look at the definition of civil society organizations in the 2012 communication, which is a public document online, I didn't come with a copy, but we can include it among the documents you can receive after, is it gives a broad range of what civil society organizations are, really. It, from NGOs to CBOs to business associations to academic associations to media associations. So there's a broad range of civil society, of organizations that are defined there. Civil society organizations does not only mean NGOs as we know them. Now, in the case of Uganda, we recognize that CSOs are not entirely governed only by the NGO Act. They are governed principally by the NGO Act, but they are also registered under URSB as legal entities, okay? And CBOs are registered at local government levels as well, at sub-county and at district levels. So there are different civil society organizations. Now, grassroots CSOs are those we find really at the community level, usually at the district level, at lower levels. They are probably not as significant as some of yours here. They are those that are probably not registered as NGOs, and they're probably much smaller with a much less area of coverage. These are the grassroots organizations that we are referring to here. Okay, I hope that clarifies. Okay, so we go on to look at the first objective. On lot 1, the issue of social accountability for service delivery. As Nicola has already indicated, we have selected these, if I call them themes or objectives, very carefully, following consultations with yourselves, following our reviews and assessments of the government governing documents, and that's how we've come up with the 3 objectives that we think we could, address. It's not possible to address everything given financial and other limitations, but we've selected these 3. Okay? It's possible you had one in mind that you thought is probably better, but probably let's take these ones. And this is what we have agreed upon. We've discussed them in great detail, and we think they will address pertinent issues in Uganda society today. Now, when we talk about issue of social accountability, we take it on the backdrop that Uganda is a decentralized country, an issue that places a huge premium on the local governments in their ability to work and to deliver services to their populace or people within their areas of jurisdiction. We recognize that there are very many local governments in Uganda, and that it does also happen that from time to time we still do get new districts being announced. But all that said, it's still the responsibility for service delivery is very heavy at the grassroots level, regardless of the sector you're talking about. Now, despite that, and given the various challenges that we see at local government, at times local governments do have their own issues. We can discuss that later. With that responsibility placed on the shoulders of local governments, we recognize that despite the times that local government fails to fulfill their mandate or provide service delivery to their populace, people or beneficiaries or civil society or vulnerable categories are simply unable to hold local government to account for non-delivery of social services. It is very common that many, even civil society organizations, many women organizations, youth groups, just accept this almost like a fait accompli situation. If there are no roads, no schools are not functioning, health facilities are not functioning, the situation is accepted. And the issue is the issues are left as they are. In this lot, the proposal is that support will be provided to enable citizens, vulnerable groups like women, youth, refugee organizations or groupings, and even civil society organizations like yourselves to demand from local governments good governance, accountability, responsiveness for service delivery in the social sectors and in natural resource management. If you notice, for those of you who have had the opportunity to read carefully the guidelines, those two sectors are particularly indicated, the social sectors and natural resource management. So our expectation is that if you're responding to this lot, you will bear that in mind, that the issues around the social sectors and natural resource management are really important for you to take into consideration when responding to Lot 1. I hope that is clear. There is a question. There's a question here. How many questions? 2 questions, okay. You can grab the mic also. You can just pick that mic. Yes, madam. Oh, it's you, sir. Okay. So there are 2 questions here.
Okay, thank you, madam.
Please, let's be specific. And
okay, my issue about the social sector is are we looking at a situation that a CSO or applicant will do, for example, education and does health and environment or climate change, in this case, in one application? Or we have the opportunity to see where our greatest advantage is? My name is Moses Mutumba.
My question is a little bit similar to his. So should the applications have, you know, when you're applying for Lot 1, is there a consideration for both social sectors and natural resource management, or can you pick and choose and say, for us, our accountability is going to be focused only on social sectors, or do you have to focus on both, or can you just pick one?
Okay, we have also noted that question. But if I'm supposed to attempt to address it directly as we go forward, is first of all, as we prepare our applications or submissions, let's bear in mind that this is a competition. You may do your best in the health sector, and your competition covers all the social sectors and the natural resource management, coming across as more cost-effective and a better choice, you see. It is a competition. So if you pick health only and only follow that, and your competition doesn't do better than you, then it's okay. But if your competition comes up with a proposal to actually, you know, have actions targeting at least 3 or 4 sectors: health, education, water and sanitation, environment, and also tackling some issues on natural resource management, they might come across as more competitive. Okay, so there are answers we cannot give you, but just bear that in mind, that this is a competition. And the expectation is that as we go ahead, and for those that will make it to the second round, you will actually see that the issue of cost effectiveness is key. Yes, okay. I hope that clarifies. Nicola, do you want to say something? There's a mic there.
Yes, is it working? Yes. All right, okay. So I think your question, is it the hand there? Is it the hand? or a whole, right? That's your question. The way when we drafted that, we thought it was more to draft it in a comprehensive manner. So it can be, the way we thought it would be is a hen/whole. So that's for you to decide if you want to focus only on one of the social sectors, and/or also resource management. This is something it's a good question. This is something that we need to clarify also in the exchange on the question and responses. So it's a hen/or. Is it clear? Yeah.
Do we have any more questions and clarification on that? Do we have any more questions there? Okay, so we move on to the issue of the big topic of youth. Lot 2 is on youth empowerment and participation in policy and development processes. With just listening to you introducing yourselves, I recognize that there are many organizations here that are working directly with youth that are much more experienced in working with youth issues, but it's good you're also here. On youth, we recognize that about 80% of Uganda's population are under 30 years. And despite that, young people or youth still have a limited say in policy and development processes, including economically. So where policies are discussed, where development issues are being discussed, where issues pertaining to decisions being taken on youth issues, the youth are not participating where they should be. Youth are also not participating adequately in the economic sectors. And we also recognize that among the youth there is extremely high unemployment, there are low skills levels, there are limited opportunities for them in all fields, and that youth are particularly vulnerable to many issues. They are vulnerable to crime, they are vulnerable to political manipulation, and all sorts of issues, vices in our society today. Normally the youth are most affected. Now, with that kind of background, which we are all aware about, COVID-19 only worsened the already existing youth challenges. Now, we have a situation like that in Uganda. So under this lot, the proposal is that support will be provided for actions that will empower youth to participate in issues that concern them in policy and development and economic engagements. So this is what we expect to see from your submissions. You're proposing ways in which youth can participate better in policy development, in development discussions, and even activities, and also in economic engagement. We expect to see that. How you will enhance youth participation, how you will bring them on the table, and how you will ensure that wherever you are working, youth are front seat, as they call it, high table. We particularly want to draw your attention to the issue of economic engagement. Youth in Uganda are particularly disenfranchised because they are not economically engaged. Now, under this lot, we really need to emphasize that priority will be to support micro and small enterprises, apprenticeships, innovations, alignment to the green economy, or the green agenda. And if I'll draw your attention again, for those who have read the guidelines carefully, you will see that We have indicated there that really activities will focus all more on ongoing activities, ongoing micro and small enterprise activities, ongoing, as opposed to venture capital and startups, as has been the case in the past. Okay? Now that is the first, under the lot of the lot for youth, there are two sublots. The first sublot will deal with these broader issues. Now the second sublot, which is a much smaller amount, will deal with issues pertaining to the Youth Sounding Board. Now, right from our international level, all delegations globally have been asked, or more like directed, to ensure that we engage with the youth much more, in a much more structured way, in all issues pertaining to the delegation's planning and implementation of programs and policies in Uganda. So that is just a fact that we want to do this in a more structured way to ensure that youth participate when we are designing new programs, when we are developing them, when we are planning, implementing them and monitoring them, etc. So this sublot is to support the setting up and implementation of what we are calling the Youth Sounding Board as the key interlocutor between the EU and, in brackets, the member states as well will participate. Someone may ask, what is a Youth Founding Board? It is a platform. Some may call it an association, but it can be a platform. It's really a platform. That's the way it is in the Commission. That's the name of that platform that brings together the youth that will actually engage the EU delegation and member states on these issues of programming. Okay, I hope that's clear as we move to lot number 3. If I'm moving too fast or too slowly, please let me know. Lot number 3, which is about the prevention and response to teenage pregnancies. I must say that this is the first time that the EU delegation will provide this kind of support directly under a call for proposal. And suffice it to say that I think there is no better time than now, following the situations that we have all seen after the COVID pandemic, the COVID lockdowns, more like, I can't say the pandemic is over, but more like the COVID restrictive measures application. So we go to the rationale, yes. Now, there are facts we have also got from colleagues who are better placed in this field. The print information shows us that 25% before COVID, 25% of Ugandan women, there is an echo. 25% of Ugandan women gave birth before the age of 18. That was in 2018, before COVID. So if it is the situation then, 2018-19, what about now? We know that the COVID situation completely, exacerbated or worsened the situation completely. Now, as we prepare to make submissions for this particular lot, we need to bear in mind that teenage pregnancy causes a host of problems. There is stigma attached to it. Usually the young girl is rejected and thrown out of home. Schooling stops. She develops a host of health complications, predisposition to sexually transmitted infections, especially HIV and AIDS, and in extreme cases, deformation because of her, immature body. And there are a host of needs as well. She has health needs, she has food needs, she has all these kind of needs, which in many cases those next to her, the duty bearers, are not able or not willing to meet because of the situation. And I think one of the biggest challenges is about compromising her future. If a girl gets pregnant at 13, it is very difficult, to talk about a future after that pregnancy. COVID-19, is this mic on? It's on, okay. COVID-19 and the school's closure completely worsened the situation. I actually, I will not mention the organization that I visited recently that works with pregnant teens, but I was shocked to actually learn that in some cases, where organizations had planned to target young women aged 18 to 30, this target had to be dropped to 13 years old. Just to show you the precariousness of the teenage pregnancy situation in our midst now. Now, several girls may never return to school if they are not supported. Several girls may never have a future, a meaningful future, if they're not supported after getting pregnant. So we would like to hear from you, what kind of interventions that you will propose with that kind of background. Now, for those who have read the guidelines, you will notice that we have severally referred to what is called the EU CSO roadmap, the European Union Civil Society Organizations roadmap. The roadmap really is our strategic plan. We have referred to it, and we have mentioned which objectives that some of these 3 objectives are aligned to, how it fits in with the EU-Uganda overall strategy. So it would be a nice thing also if you could spare a day and also take a look at the EU roadmap just to enrich your understanding of our overall strategy with civil society organizations. The EU's civil society roadmap is also on our website, which I hope you have all liked and shared. And in any case, we have your emails. If it's also a document of interest, we can also share it bilaterally. Next, we move on to the activities. Don't worry, I'm almost gone, then you'll hear another voice. Activities. Normally, we provide an indicative list of activities that guide your selection. It's just to guide your selection of what you would like to do. This is not the prescribed list of what you must do, but it is aligned with the objectives and the rationale and the broader picture, such that, it provides some guidance if you're not sure, which, are we on the right track or they're on the wrong track. So this is, we give you a list of activities that is also not exhaustive. You can go over and above that list as long as you are in line with the thinking. So for lot 1, again, we have, proposed a list of activities, some of which may be interesting for some of you. You can go over and above this. For lot 1, just to remind you, it is to do with the social accountability, holding local governments to account for governance, service delivery, etc. Some of the activities that you can consider: actions that enable citizens hold government to account for poor or non-delivery of social services, actions which enable citizens, vulnerable categories, CSOs to demand for good governance, greater accountability, responsiveness of the public sector, public authorities, and service providers. Actions that generally empower citizen-led accountability. So it's not enough only to undertake the actions, but citizens also need to be supported to get empowered to do this, okay? Then actions that provide citizens with information. This is also one of the ways of empowering, but also enabling, the holding to account. Actions that provide citizens with information on government performance and obligations to its citizens. Actions that raise awareness about the parish development model and possibilities to enable its implementation. It's a good place to start. If the parish development model is there with us at local government, why not get all the information and make it work where you are, So that's also there. And then actions that empower the village level leaders in following up deliverables. In many local authorities, or many times we visit your civil society organizations, a common challenge we hear about is elected leaders not knowing what to do. Councillors, district councillors, youth councillors not knowing what to do. So this is also an opportunity. Actions that empower village level leaders in following up deliverables, okay, for their areas of jurisdiction. And actions that give local leaders a voice to speak on issues pertaining to their localities. So these are some of the examples. These are just examples of some of the activities you could consider. We would expect you to apply a lot of innovation and, localize some of these activities, and don't take them wholesale and use them in your activity. But again, if you choose to do it, that's your choice. But would expect some innovation as well, and like to see also your thoughts on the selection of the actions. For Lot 2A, again, it's a non-exhaustive list of activities. And for those of you who have read the guidelines very carefully, I would like to draw your attention to one fact on this list of activities. There has been a slight change from the guidelines as you had it from the 7th of April to date. We had provided an indicative list of 9 activities there. We have removed one activity, the last one, activity number 9. If you look at your guidelines, you will notice that the last activity has been removed, and we shall communicate this to you formally, not to your organizations, but it will be posted on the website as an amendment to the guidelines sometime next week. So please do keep checking our website for any updates on the guidelines. So there will be already one amendment there, right there, regarding the list of activities for Lot 2A. The last activity has been removed. So we come back to this list of activities pertaining to... Does someone have a question? Oh, is that question online? Maybe can I ask the online participants, if you have questions, can you type them in? I guess you can see them, the IT team can see them. Can you see the questions? Check if there are questions from our online participants, please. I will ask my colleague Tom just to keep a tab on that, if there are questions coming in from our online participants. Thank you. On this list of the non-exhaustive list of activities under Lot 2A, we are proposing that some actions should also include, activities that raise youth voices in policy and development processes, activities that seek to enable young or youth enterprises take off using cost-efficient approaches. You remember what we mentioned, what we already discussed under the rationale, that the focus will actually be not on youth startups, but more on youth and enhancement of enterprises. Take off, enabling enterprises to take off where you propose to work on income generation activities. And actions that facilitate youth organizations at village level to receive financial empowerment and pilot more effective and inclusive youth employment strategies and decent work opportunities. Well, that seems a big one, but it is what it is. And support will also be provided for actions that monitor, advocate, and pilot reforms, making it better and easier for youth to become self-employed or start a business. Now, at some of your local authority levels, it is very difficult for young people to start or continue a business. Now, you could propose some activities that facilitate their starting businesses or, enhancing their businesses. Another point is that support will be provided for actions that support strengthening links with the private sector for meaningful apprenticeships, business, and employment opportunities. Now, I know some of your organizations work heavily on youth empowerment strategies, financial and economic empowerment strategies. So you could also propose ways of, enhancing these apprenticeships and making them more meaningful, building linkages with the private sector. All these things will be supported. And also, probably under this issue, we received already a question regarding apprenticeships. There's a question that came in that asked a question like, in our district, the private sector is so underdeveloped. Wouldn't it be more meaningful to go and undertake the apprenticeships elsewhere? And this person, I think, was asking, Jackie, if you remind me, was it a question from Arua district, I think, asking a question that, isn't it better to undertake these apprenticeships elsewhere? The elsewhere was not indicated. But again, I will underline what I already said. This is a competition. And apprenticeships in themselves are quite costly. We are fully aware that an apprenticeship process, the whole process, preparation of the location for the apprenticeship, bringing the, you may find the young person already working there, preparing them to undertake this in a formal way, ensuring government also designates this as a place of examination, and then actually ensuring that the young person is tested. The whole process, tested, certified, and continues to work on their internship. It is an expensive process, so you need to bear in mind also what the cost would be if you choose to carry your apprenticeship to another place, especially a location which is not listed among the call for proposal locations. Again, as I said, we shall respond in writing, but some of these points, we just touch on them as we come to these points, as we come to issues relating to them. Then also other actions that will be supported is actions that address the high unemployment rate and actions that strengthen the rights of young people in their empowerment and engagement in public affairs. Now, this is just an indicative list. You could come up with your own list of over 20 activities that you want to do, as long as it's in line with the objective and the rationale that we have already indicated in the detailed call for proposal guidelines. Now, for lot B, sublot B, it's much more simpler. Actions relating to setting up and operationalizing the youth sounding board will be supported. So you tell us what kind of actions you need to undertake to set up this platform and to operationalize it. We will not prescribe. We want to see your innovation. And then I'm just looking at the time here with about how many slides? 2 more slides to go. I just want to find out from Edith, what time will we have the tea break? Is it at 10 o'clock? At 10 o'clock? No, we will go, no, we'll continue, but I would want it to be a working tea, if they can locate it here as a working tea, so that there's no break. Okay? If you can make that arrangement, maybe Thomas could check, just to make it, if they could move it here. And on lot 3, another question from you, Richard. Please, if you have questions for clarification, are there any questions from our online participants? No questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. My question was on lot 2B, the youth sounding board. Is this envisaged to be a centralized sounding board? Is this envisaged to be a centralized sounding board, or can you have a decentralized model where you have sounding boards around the country? Because those may create more noise than one sounding board.
Thank you, Richard. Let me come to that question in the next slide, okay? Just let's park it right there, and we'll come to it when we're talking about location. We come to a potential list of, I understand there are questions from the online participants that has been sent to my WhatsApp. I don't see any questions here on my WhatsApp. I go on, okay. Okay, if there are any questions, please, you can send them. I have my WhatsApp here ready to take those questions. On lot 3, some potential activities under the topic of the prevention and response to teenage pregnancies. We propose, or we would like to see, activities that seek to enhance sexual and reproductive health and rights in young people, to prevent. Remember, the objective is really to prevent and respond to teenage pregnancies. So we would like to see activities that seek to prevent and address issues of child rape and defilement, prevent teenage pregnancies and sexually transmitted diseases, among others. So we would also like to see activities that seek to address some of the challenges linked to teenage pregnancies. We would also like to see actions that support the safe re-entry of girls into school or an alternative education pathway. And actions that support general sensitization of the public on rights. Okay, thank you. I'll look at her. Just targeting. Okay. Actions that support general sensitization of the public on rights holders and young people on teenage pregnancy will also be supported. And actions that address the stigma caused by teenage pregnancy as well. And actions spearheaded here is, I think, very important that you note that activities spearheaded by cultural institutions, faith-based organizations that directly address issues of sexuality in young people and teenage pregnancy. We recognize that different cultural and faith-based organizations have different ways of dealing with young people's sexuality. What might work in one faith may not seem really applicable in another, but we would like to also encourage, faith-based cultural organizations to also apply, wherever it's possible. And even if you're not a faith-based or cultural organization, you could also, indicate some of these activities which may address this challenge among us. I see I'm getting questions from the online participants. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Is there any speculation? Okay. Okay, there's a question here. We'll come to it now that we are going to the issues of location. The next slide, please. We come to, next slide, please. Oh, no. Location. Oh, one more. I think we'll keep one microphone on this table, on this side, to ease the engagement.
No,
Yes.
sorry for coming back many times,
Okay.
but since this is the only time we can ask you verbally, we shall do now. On lot 3, around teenage pregnancy, I find it a bit problematic that there are no actions that really target these irresponsible men. There has to be something. I wish, because, you know, if the men in the community are the problem, and they impregnate these girls, and then we are saying safe re-entry, if you are taking them back and the hostile men don't feel any risk. So I was thinking that maybe on that lot we could have an action that really makes it risky for men to sleep around with small girls. But I don't know if the EU wants to do something that, you know, while you can say people can innovate it, but if, for example, the EU put it there as one of the actions, I think people may pick it up and also target the stopping men from being irresponsible, because I think that's one of the biggest problems this country has. And yet we keep looking at helping the girls, but then the environment is still hostile. So I would wish to just suggest that the EU adds an action that specifically focuses
On men.
on men, irresponsible.
No, I will actually ask you, Richard, when you are preparing your submission, because if you look at the first action there, the first action, if we could go one slide back. Yes, thank you, that right there. Actions, the first point, actions that seek to enhance prevention of teenage pregnancy. Okay, now that is a broad topic. What are some of the actions? You could bring in, you could propose actions that target irresponsible men, as you call them, actions that target irresponsible boys, you know. You tell us, we've opened it up for you so you can propose. As I said already, these activities are not prescriptive, they only provide guidance and they are not exhaustive. So you can go over and beyond this. You could actually tell us even which kind of men are the irresponsible ones in your communities. Yes, absolutely. We would make your presentation, make your submission even more interesting for the evaluators, I tell you. But thank you very much for that comment, but it's, you know, we leave it also to you. Okay, we have one more question on the other side. Is this also on the irresponsible men again?
Thank you. My question is on lot 2. The focus, you said, is on existing businesses. I mean, ongoing activities. So does it mean that we cannot start new projects on this fund? Can we use this fund as revolving fund for youth?
I am going right back to my guidelines, which I believe you have all read.
There is another question here. Elizabeth?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, I have 3 questions to ask. One is, how many pages can an applicant submit? There are cases where the donor sets conditions that the information may be too bulky, and what should not miss in the proposal, because there are key aspects that are supposed to be attached in the application. That's what I entirely
Thank you very much. On the size, I will answer yours right away. On the size and the number of pages, we shall come to that in detail. The issue of the startups vis the, I think it's mentioned in the guidelines, if you read really carefully, that activities that enhance existing businesses will be supported. I'm trying to find the exact wording in the guidelines, but please note that question, Jackie. Please note that question so that we can respond also in writing. Ongoing businesses, these startups, and if the money can be used for a revolving fund. But can you clarify what kind, as a revolving fund? I think as I said, we cannot prescribe what works in your area and what doesn't work. Just bear in mind that this is a competition. And again, if you propose in your submission to set up a revolving fund, for instance, as part of the economic empowerment, you must propose a methodology that is less risky and that is more beneficial, more effective to issues of economic engagement among young people. You know, you have to market your approach. Remember, this is a competition. And at the end of the day, what will determine the outcome is what you actually write, not what you convince me here in this room, really. It will be what you actually put it down properly, and put it in a way that convinces the examiners to actually buy your argument. Yes, Thomas. Okay, I have been told that the tea is ready. Now, for purposes of not breaking the session, we'll just recommend maybe a few people, you grab a cup, you come back. You grab your cup, you come back. And I would advise that the whole room doesn't leave me presenting to an empty room as you go for tea, because I will continue. So maybe one table goes, or but the tea is ready, just outside. Apparently, they had already set it up, so they couldn't move it in. So that it is what it is. There was a question here on requirement. Maybe we take it also right away. Is there any specific requirement responding, targeting host or refugee communities? Let me first deal with location. As I turn my page over, let me speak to myself and just remind myself and some of you that I think it's important that when we leave here, we actually read the guidelines. We have made them sufficiently detailed, and I really must underline that we have made them sufficiently detailed that some of the questions actually are already answered there in a better way than probably we're doing here. So please take your time and read them. Even as you grab, please, some can already go for their tea. Read the guidelines, because then a lot of your questions will be answered. Now, the next point we talk about is the location. Now, this issue of location, I must admit, is always a huge bone of contention. And many times we are asked, even as the EU, why we continue to focus in the regions that we focus in. But suffice it to say that the choice and the selection of these regions is made based on the poverty data. We look at the poverty, the human development data, we look at the needs of the target audiences that we probably have zeroed in, after developing the objectives, and you think we're going to work with youth and teenage mothers. Which are the areas with the highest teenage pregnancy rates? Which are the areas with the highest youth vulnerability? You look at all those human development indicators, and then you'll actually find the regions pop up on their own. And it's usually the same regions. with slight differences, but pretty much the same. So I would also invite you to take an opportunity, take some time and also visit the Uganda Bureau of Statistics website, look at the poverty assessment reports, and look at the different assessments they have done on youth, on women. Some of you I know do this. I know, Richard, you're an academician, you do this, you know those reports. And we do use them also for, for guiding the selection of the areas. Okay? So for lot 1, 2A, and 3, those are the locations which are selected. They are not proposed. These are the ones that have been selected. I see a question already from Claire.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Some of these districts listed are now subdivided into new districts. Can you just clarify that those subdivisions are also eligible?
Yes, the subdivisions are also eligible. The reason we have picked these ones is these ones, at the time we picked from the UBOS website, they are the ones which had been gazetted. It takes a while for the new district to be actually gazetted, and these are the ones which were there. I noticed even districts like Kirenga from Karamoja are not listed, but it is one of those. So West Nile as a block is a work area. West Nile as a block. Someone already asked about Terego and Maracha. Maracha is there. Terego, it's not there, but it is eligible because it was carved out of Arua. Greater North, if I'm to sum it up, it's Acholi sub-region and Lango sub-region. I hope that is clear. Karamoja is the Karamoja sub-region, which includes also Kirenga. Eastern Uganda, it would be what we know as Bukedi and Busoga. I hope I'm right on Bukedi. Yes, it is Bukedi and Busoga. That is how they are listed in, although now I see that UBOS has come up with new apportionments for naming of the Uganda sub-regions. So probably the next call, in maybe 2 years, then we shall use those ones. Okay? You're sad that your region is not there. These are the poorest regions in Uganda, according to the government statistics. Okay? So we go to lot 2. This should be actually lot 2B. That is a typo there. It should be lot 2B, which will also answer your question, Dr. Sewakiranga. The issue for actions under lot 2B, activities may take place in any location of Uganda, but they must be of a national character. They must be of a national character, okay? So if you have your district sounding boards, you would have to convince the examiners that they are of a national character, okay? Before I invite Jackie, the tea is getting cold. You can't run away from me. Okay, unfortunately, maybe we give you just 5 minutes, pick your tea and come. As Jackie is coming up here to, Jackie will take the next slides. Someone had a question here. Was a question answered? There's a mic here on this table.
I don't know whether you are picking our sound.
Thank you. I was seeking clarity on the intersectionality of actions.
Sorry?
I was seeking clarity on intersectionality of the actions.
What do you mean?
For example, if we're looking at addressing the question of teenage pregnancies, is it possible for actions to also consider elements around economic empowerment for the teenage mothers? Yes, between the lots. Is there room for that? No, For example, I was looking at
sorry.
one of the actions on addressing challenges facing teenage pregnancy. And one of the challenges is around their economic status, and I'm wondering whether we can bring in those aspects of economically empowering the teenage mothers.
You tell us those actions which prevent teenage pregnancy. If you consider this an action that prevents teenage pregnancy, go ahead and tell us how you can best implement this. You know, ours is not prescriptive. Where it's prescriptive, we shall let you know. We are coming next to the sections that the next sections that Jackie and me will continue with. There are sections which are very prescriptive and not negotiable. But what we're talking about, the technical aspects that we've told you about, the objectives, that one is not negotiable. But when it comes to the activities, we give you guidance on which direction to go, and then we expect that you follow that direction. You know, you don't go completely off on a tangent and say, you gave us the flexibility. Okay? And on the issue of having, I think it depends on your creativity. We expect innovation, creativity from your submissions. There's a question from, a comment from Nicola.
Yeah, thank you. Is it on? Okay. I think
it's not loud. The person on sound, this mic is not loud enough.
Right, okay.
It's sort of muffled.
So yeah, of course, on your question, yeah, those are indicative. If you want to address teenage pregnancy, you are part of lot 3. If you are, we are aware that a lot of action in this area also involve economic empowerment, but you need to build a case. So if you convince us that you, through economic empowerment, you are going to prevent, you know, teenage pregnancy, then but you need to make your case. So like we are not prescriptive, and at that point, this is you to show with your action in terms of economic empowerment, you are going to address teenage pregnancies. If you can do so, and if you can convince us, then you will be eligible under lot 3. Maybe on question from Richard on the youth sending board, I wanted to complement also the idea of the youth sending board. You'll see in page 6, we mentioned, okay, youth sending board, national dimension of the youth sending board, but obviously it has to be representative of the different regions. So you'll see that we say the purpose of the youth sending board is to organize and facilitate regular exchange with a representative sample of youth in terms of sub-region, gender, and vulnerabilities. So if you set up a sending board with only youth based in Kampala, probably it would not be the most interesting youth sending board that will be established. There were also a question on refugees. Again, there is no strong prescription on refugees. We talk in several parts of the document about vulnerable people. Refugees are considered as vulnerable people, so it's up to you to decide whether or not you want to integrate them in your action. You want to focus on them only. So we are not so prescriptive in the guideline on that. So it's open, up to you to decide how you want to approach it. Thank you. And last, there will be also, if you still have question on the more substance of the call, there is still the opportunity to send in writing your questions. The deadline is 10th of May. It has been extended, so the deadline is, you are going to say that? Okay, when is the new deadline? So the new deadline is 19th of May. So there you still have the opportunity to review in detail the content, and if you have more questions, you send them in writing, and then we will respond to everybody. So again, this is a call for proposal, so we will take the best offer based on the merit of each offer, but it's important therefore that everybody has the same level of information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. As colleagues come back from the tea break, I have lots of questions here from our online participants. I'll first go, do we have any participant online that wants to say something? Maybe you've muted them centrally. Is there anyone, is there any raised hand?
Yes, please.
Yes, go ahead. Tell us your name and organization.
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hello.
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Hello.
We can hear you. We can hear you. Please go ahead. I'm afraid we'll have to terminate.
Hello, good morning.
Okay, go ahead.
I am Naroiso Olivia Mary from Akbo Foundation. And my question is, if we have the lead applicant as a local NGO, however, then they are working with a non-registered organization in Uganda that is the co-applicant. Is that okay? And then another question is, how many co-applicants can be in one proposal?
Thank you. Next question. To answer. Is there another hand online? Okay, we'll take also these questions that I have received by WhatsApp from Edith. These ones, I think we have them on record. The first question was the one about the specific targeting host or refugees. I think Nicola has responded to that. A second question is, would a proposal that covers youth agricultural programs be supported? Already working with female youth in coffee farmers, where they are supported with loans and farm inputs. Okay, who wants to take that one? Okay, I think the colleague who asked this question about the youth agriculture programs, just follow the guidelines. If the guidance we have provided on applying, on application is not sufficient, you will have to write formally and submit it to us by the 17th of May. Because I think we have delved into this question for long now, the eligibility issue. Another question is on Lot 1. Even though it is not the core of our proposal, can we propose an income generating activity for the economic sustainability of the target groups, women and youth? Thank you. Who wants to take that one? They want to propose economic activity in Lot 1. Nicola, would you like to answer that? Thank you. Pick another mic, please.
It's working? Well, it's difficult to respond to those questions on agriculture and on this empowerment. No, I mean, this is part of, it's difficult to say if it will be eligible or not. I mean, this is part of the concept note process, where you submit to us your ideas in a concise format, and if we think they are the best one, then you'll move to the next stage. Now, in terms of economic empowerment, this is more on the Lot 2 than on the Lot 1. This is a first reaction, but again, we are not here we are not going to select here, basically, your ideas and concept. I mean, here it's more about more general question. And if you can convince us in your concept that what you propose fits with the objective that we've put for the different lots, then it's fine. But I don't think we are going to review in detail your ideas here.
Okay, thank you. There are actually several questions I have got here, but several of them have to do with the subsequent slides on issues of location, on issues of who can apply, eligibility, on the one on Youth Sounding Board has been answered. Somebody is giving us their email for registration. They're online, they would also like materials. It's mainly about the issue of eligibility, location, and who can apply. You know, can CSO, someone is asking here, for example, can media development organizations apply in lots 1 and 2? So the issue of eligibility, you know, eligibility, who can apply? Okay, I think we'll deal with these questions, you know. Jackie is going right into the issues of eligibility, and I know that a lot of guidance will be, a lot of questions will be answered by her presentation. So I'll stop there for the moment. I will come back again, sadly, to finish up. And yes, it's just the two of us. And then we'll finish up. So Jackie, you're welcome to pick it up from there. Then I hope you've all grabbed a cup of tea. A little bit of, okay.
Yes, maybe. Good morning once again. You're most welcome to this presentation. I bend, okay. So how does this call work? This call is a restricted call for proposal. It works with 2 stages. We have the first stage, as in you submit your concept note, it is evaluated, and results are sent out in form of letters through prospect. Then when you have passed the first step of the concept note, after evaluation, we will request you in writing to submit your full proposal, your budget, and your logical framework. And as Elizabeth has mentioned, I kindly request you, please read through the guidelines. Please read through those annexes we attached. Please update yourself with the publications, website. Please check daily, because we do have changes and we publish them, and it is for your own good knowledge, for you to know what has changed. Because as Elizabeth has said, we will have a corrigendum. Dates are going to change for the submission and for the clarifications. They have been extended by a week, but we are going to publish this next week. So please, please kindly read through the guidelines and the annexes and all the information that is availed to you. Submission of concept notes has been changed, as I've mentioned earlier. We are extending by a week because there is activity that was removed that we must give time to you people to look through and present a proper concept note. Submission of this call is online via prospect. Please do not wait for last minute to register and to apply. Start your process early, because delays of rainfall, of weather conditions, of traffic congestion on the network, let those not be excuses for you to fail. We need you to give us proper concept notes with a proper time prescribed to you and of value. So I move on to the next slide, which is the duration for this action. We have the minimum period of the action of the concept note that you're preparing is supposed to be for 24 months, not less. You see, why we do give these presentations, sometimes you think it is obvious. You give instructions in the guidelines, you give a time frame that the action will last 24 months minimum to 48 months. But someone gives you a concept note and puts period of the action 20 months, and you're out at the administrative check when you have put in a lot in your concept note. So I kindly ask you, I will emphasize, don't let the administrative checklist push you out. Follow it to the dot. Then we move to the amount to be requested from the EU contribution, excluding Lot 2B. We have the minimum amount of the EU contribution is 400,000 euros. So please don't send in your concept note and say the minimum EU contribution amount is 350,000. You are out. Minimum EU contribution according to your calculations should be 400,000 euros plus what you will put. Plus your co-financing. Then the maximum EU contribution is 600,000 euros. This is in the guidelines. And please read through the guidelines. Even when we put the corrigendum, keep on updating yourself with the information. Lot 2B is different because the maximum amount, it doesn't have a minimum amount. It only has a maximum amount of 75,000 euros. Sorry, I just need some. Then we have the percentages for the EU contribution as laid down in Article 2.1.3 of the guidelines. Please don't take copies. We are going to publish this information session. So the maximum EU percentage contribution is 50% of your total eligible costs, and the total eligible costs, you look at the budget, the annex that was attached among the documents that will guide you. The maximum EU contribution is 80%. I see a hand up, Thomas. Okay, let them.
Thank you. I want to understand the extent of the competition. Okay. Yeah. Under Lot 1, which is social accountability for service delivery, the money allocated is 1 million euros.
Yes.
And when you see the amounts available, is the minimum amount is 400.
Yes, please.
And maximum 600.
Yes, please.
And the percentage contribution, of course, we see 80 and 95. Okay, let's just take 80. Does that mean that for Lot 1, you're giving this grant to like 2 organizations?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's remember that this is EU taxpayers' money and they are supporting us. So even if it does look like it is 2 grants, but it's worthwhile because it helps us change our economic activities, our economic sustainability, generally our livelihood. Yes.
My question is about the co-financing. So for those of us that don't have experience with EU, can you sort of take us through what that co-financing looks like, what it is, what would the contribution from the organization look like? It may seem obvious, but I don't think it is. Then for Lot 2B, I see that the maximum amount you have indicated is 75 euros, which looks like the will there be co-financing for lot 2B? Or are you willing to give the entire amount without considering co-financing?
For lot 2B, we shall come back to that one and we shall share the question online. But for the co-financing, the EU grant works in such a way that it contributes to part of the action. You are two parties to this action. Both of you give a contribution in order for the implementation of the action to be a success. So the percentage contribution of EU depends on what is agreed on in the action documents. So if your action, you may have an action of 600,000, EU will contribute 80% and you bring 20%. The same applies with, because you see we have two maximum amounts. The one for 95% is if the CSO is established in Uganda, you have an added advantage. You can ask for 95% of the 600,000 and you contribute 5%. So that is how the co-financing works. Anything else? Should I continue? Next slide, please. So under the EU, we have ineligible actions. This basically is actions that the EU doesn't support. And we emphasize these actions so that you don't bring them up when you're presenting your concept notes. The actions concerned mainly with individual sponsorships for workshops, etc. for studies or training courses, one-off conferences, actions which consist exclusively or primarily of capital expenditure like land, buildings, actions concerning microcredit activities, actions which discriminate against individuals or groups of people on grounds of their gender, sexual orientation, religious beliefs, or lack of them, or their ethnic origin. And also actions supporting political parties we do not support. So we move on to who can apply under this action. Kindly refer to the guidelines, have more details. So section 2.1 of the guidelines will have more, but the brief points here is one must be a legal person, that is an entity or a person with legal rights and obligations established. Secondly, it must be a non-profit entity. And thirdly, it must be a civil society organization as Elizabeth has originally defined. Then a point to note here is either the lead applicant or co-applicant must be established in Uganda when applying for this call. So we move to the co-applicants. The lead applicant may act individually or with a co-applicant. Like I have mentioned before, for actions presented by non-Ugandan actors, a Ugandan established co-applicant is mandatory. Please bear that in mind when applying. Then the co-applicant must satisfy all the eligibility criteria as is required of a lead applicant. And lastly, point to note, local authorities are not eligible as co-applicants, unfortunately, in this case. So we move to affiliated entities. Yes, please.
You see, the word local authorities, I know it may mean different things. Does that mean local governments? That's one, because, for example, the Uganda Urban Authorities Association is a CSO, but it calls itself an authority. And yet we use the word local authorities. So maybe to clarify. Thanks.
Thomas.
Thank you. My question is about the co-financing. What nature should it take form? Should it be cash always?
Yes, please, cash, no in kind. Thank you.
Thank you. My question is on macro credit. You mean there is no lending, like what the previous person was suggesting, say giving out money to the beneficiaries in terms of credit facilities?
That will be stipulated under financial support. If you want to put it in, you must justify it, but we don't cover it. Maybe Elizabeth would answer the local authorities. Elizabeth, please put a note for local authorities because we've mentioned they are not eligible, so he was asking a question as per local authority. So then we move on to affiliated entities. Yes? Okay. She can, yeah.
The question was about eligibility of local authorities?
Yes, because I brought it out to their attention that local authorities are not eligible.
Yes.
So he was asking about a local authority.
Yes, for this particular call, local... Yes, it is a... Now, an urban authority depends, like you're talking about KCCA, for example. Urga is a CSO, according to their statutes, unless they have changed their statutes, from what I knew. But they call themselves, okay, now we would need to look at those statutes. We cannot pronounce ourselves definitely. If they are calling themselves an authority and we know them as a CSO, now we'd need to look at the statutes. But a local authority for the EU is the same as a local authority for the government of Uganda. Yes, we recognize the national authorities and then the local authorities. It may be at district level, it may be at division level, it may be at LC3 level, county, sub-county, and LC1 levels, parish levels. Those are local authorities for us as well. But they are not eligible for this call. But of course, you're going to talk about the issue of beneficiaries, affiliates, etc., etc.
We finished, yes. Okay, we can continue. So we're looking at affiliated entities. Is there another question? Yes, please.
I'm just imagining a scenario where you applied for lot 2, A and B, and is there a scenario that you might end up only getting lot B of lot 2? I've applied for both A and B.
Yes.
You evaluate my proposal, and I end up with B alone.
Well, the evaluation committee will sit and evaluate proposals, and the best applicant will win. We cannot specify here that you can get A, you can get B. It is based on what you will present. That is why, like Elizabeth said, this is a competition. Please add value to your concept notes. Thank you. Yes, if you go through, I cannot tell you that yes, you're going to get B because I do not know what you're going to present. It is a competition. Yes. Okay, so we can continue with the affiliated entity. This is an entity with a structural link that is neither limited to the action or established for the purpose of implementing the action. Affiliated entities are like you have a parent company, then a grandparent or a granddaughter. That is how it works. But kindly read through the guidelines to understand it more. So we move to the next slide of how many applications can I submit. We are, like I said earlier, there is a corrigendum that is coming out next week, which will be published. and there is a part of this section that has been modified. So our presentation has taken into note that modification. So a lead applicant can submit only one application per lot and can be awarded a maximum of 1 grant per lot. The second recommendation is a lead applicant may not be a co-applicant or an affiliated entity in another application of the same lot. Originally, in our guidelines published on 7th, this was allowing a lead applicant to be a co-applicant, but it has been revised for transparency reasons. So please note that we are going to reprint this to republish next week. So a lead may not be a co-applicant or an affiliated entity in another application of the same lot. 3, a co-applicant stroke affiliated entity may not be the co-applicant or affiliated entity in more than 2 applications per lot, which means that as a co-applicant you can apply twice in the same lot, no more please. A lead you can only apply once in the same lot. Then a co-applicant or affiliated entity may not be awarded more than 2 grants per lot. And we will give you reference to page 14 for more details. Next slide. Like we said before, this is an online call, and we require that you get registered with PADOL, which means in full potential applicant data online registration database. This is an EU database where you get registered and you're given a Europe Aid ID. As a lead applicant for this call, it is a requirement that you have a Europe Aid ID at the concept note level. Please bear that in mind. Let us not submit with no Europe Aid numbers and you're disqualified. We will only accept the form if you have really failed, but we request you, don't wait for last minute. Please upload your documents and get a Europe Aid ID. And I would kindly suggest that even the co-applicants go ahead and do it. Don't wait for last minute, please. So what you need to upload in PADOL, you need the statutes or articles of association of the applicant, of each co-applicant and each affiliated entity. A copy of the applicant's latest account, but this is not required for the co-applicants or the affiliated entities. Legal entity sheet, these legal entity forms have already been published, so please check the annexes under the website. The financial identification form is for the lead. So I will end there and let Elizabeth come with a concept note. I hope I have not been boring, and I hope you have picked up. Thank you.
Apologies, my colleague asked a question here that on the local contribution, he says, how about if local contribution is via rent for premises? Is it eligible or non-eligible?
I think we're coming to the issue of budget. Let's look at the budget. We actually have mentioned it categorically that for the contribution in kind,
We have said no.
Jackie, there's another question here.
we have completely excluded it from this call, the issue of
Thank you so much. Just again, clarification on the co-financing. I think there is a bit of confusion. The 600, for example, if I am applying for 600,000 maximum, is 600,000, for example, the 80% contribution, or
600 is the total, and 80% of that is a contribution from EU, and 20% of that is the co-financing. Or the 600,000 is the 80% from EU, and I have to top up the 20%.
No, the 600 is the maximum EU contribution, so you have to do the maths. The EU contribution maximum amount is 600,000. The percentage contribution of the EU is 80%. So you have to look at your budget and calculate and make sure that the EU contribution is between 600,000 maximum and 400,000 minimum. But it does not mean that your total cost must be 600,000 or 400, no. Okay. You have to calculate.
Jackie, there is another question there.
I think the question also is whether the 600 is the 80% or the 90%. So, okay, no, but that's just sort of an assumption. It's just for like teaching purposes. So it can be either. If you can refer, do I have my guidelines? I have my guidelines. No, here they are. I'm just going back to my guidelines, which I hope you do have. Yes, here. On page 7. Let me take the 95%, which is by far easier to understand. The total eligible cost. So the 600,000 can be 95% if you meet that requirement. If you are established and you can demonstrate it, that you are established by an instrument governed by the national law of Uganda. I hope I'm clear. If you can establish and illustrate that you are registered by the national law of Uganda, then the 95% can be 600,000. Then you work backwards for the 800, for the 80%. If you cannot illustrate that, then 80% will apply. But in any case, you are not obliged, as Jackie I think said, I was coming in, you are not obliged to, to request or to go up to the 90%, 95% or 80%. Some organizations actually prefer the EU only to contribute 50%. So 50% is the minimum percentage. You can't ask the EU to contribute for 40% of your action, will not allow. The minimum we shall contribute to any action is 50%. Okay? The minimum. If you want to build, I don't know, buildings not allowed. If you want to train, I don't know how many people or undertake actions for social accountability, 50% will be our cost, 50%. That's the minimum. We can go as high as 95% if you are registered under those statutes of Uganda. Okay?
There's another question here.
Okay.
Yeah, this regards the PADOA registration. We've been trying to do this, but the admin says registration is unable to take place because whenever she gets into the link, it keeps referring her to different sites. So I don't know how we can be helped about that, the PADOA registration.
Can you write that and I'll check it? Okay, let's take note of that.
Is she using the link that is in the guidelines?
We're going to put that down and check if there's a technical glitch. At the moment, there are some system changes that the Commission is undergoing that could potentially interfere, but at least if you could keep that slip with that date to show that you really did try at that date. And let me emphasize the issue of late. We get many of these pleas for consideration. after the deadline. And, you know, evidence that someone only logged in, you know, the night of the deadline. So my advice, do it early. Try now, and then try at different times. You know, at times with the internet, huge systems like ours, you try at different times of the day. Don't consistently stick to, say we do it at midday only. No, try early morning and evening. It could be a system overload issue. Because there are many people at the moment, I know over 100 delegations which have actually launched calls for proposals. So there is really an overload now, currently.
Another question here.
Yes.
My question, just clarification.
Go ahead.
If one NGO is a lead applicant in one thematic area, can that NGO apply as a co-applicant in another thematic area?
Maybe we should have that slide back. This is the question that we have got even so far among many of your questions. I think this is, if you could go back once, who can apply? No, you've gone too far. You've gone too far. It was just, go ahead. Yes, go ahead. Oh, you've gone too far. Not back. Go forward. How does, yes? The next slide. Next. Next slide. Who can apply? No, there's that one of who can apply. Then next, after that one. Next, after that. Okay, then Pado. Go next slide, please. Next slide. How many applications can I submit? Maybe we just go over that slide again. Okay? If you choose, if your organization chooses to be a lead applicant, you can only submit one application per lot, and you can be awarded a maximum of 1 grant per lot. What does that mean? If you choose to be a lead applicant, you can apply in 3. Okay? You can apply in 3, but we will only give you 1 grant per lot. Now, it does happen that some of your organizations apply, send in 2 applications per lot. It has happened in the past, where there are 2 applications for lot 1, 2 applications for lot 2, but we shall only give you one grant, a maximum of 1 grant per lot. Even if you were the best applicant, number 1 and number 2, we will not give you the 2 grants per lot. I'm coming to the second point. The second point. Now, if you choose to be a lead applicant, you cannot be a co-applicant or an affiliated entity in the same lot, in another application of the same lot. In a different lot. You can, it's not mentioned. It's not mentioned. I have my guidelines here.
So meaning that you can be a lead applicant in one lot and a co-applicant or lead applicant in the second lot, right?
Yes.
That's what she's saying. There's another question?
Yes.
Please go ahead. Right there.
Yes, thank you very much for the chance that I've been given to speak. I come from Karamoja sub-region, and I have a burning issue that I think I should bring it out in this room. Mama, Karamoja is very different from other regions of Uganda. Very, very different. And the question, the comment I'm bringing out is on the examiners. Because the challenges in Karamoja, sometimes people write these nice proposals. the best English. And these projects are given to these people, to these organizations. Yet, the problem could actually be different. The root causes are different. The reason why Karamoja is the poorest in Uganda is because these programs are not targeting the causes, the real problem which is there in the region. Because Karamoja is constant. It's the best in the, if you look at the statistics, constantly. I know EU has funded projects in Karamoja, and some projects have been done excellent. And most of the projects, the resources have been misdirected, actually. To me, I'm of the view to the examiners, when they are reading these proposals, when they are looking at these concept notes, can they understand the challenges Karamoja is facing? So that is what I'm bringing out, that if the real challenges in Karamoja are addressed, because it looks enjoyable for other people to hear Karamoja murders, Karamoja poverty, Karamoja street children, Karamoja. So to me, it's really about targeting now. What is even if it means coming up with some other strategy now for Karamoja, or even coming with different guidelines for Karamoja. Because it's really, I don't know, but it's something that we can think through and see how Karamoja can be better again. Thank you.
Just for clarity, they are not examiners, members of the evaluation committee. It's an evaluation committee, not an examinations committee.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We note that concern, which you also raised with me just outside of the T. But let me underline the fact that what I already said, the EU's contribution to Uganda's development challenges is just a contribution. The EU's is a contribution. And for this particular call for proposals, we've already selected guidelines of areas we want to focus in. Now, our request is that you harmonize these objectives to your local issues with what we have discussed this morning. It is not possible for us to address everything in any location. Actually, one of the questions we have received online is that why did we exclude Bundibujo? It is the poorest region in Uganda. So every region has its peculiarities and its poverty pockets that are very difficult to address, and we recognize that. But it's not possible, thank you very much, Nicola, it's not possible to address everything under this particular call for proposal. But let me encourage you that you have conversations with these people who write in very good English, such that you meet in the middle. It's true. There are times when there are civil society partners here in this room that we work with already. There are times I have actually asked them that you go and talk to this one. Because there are times from our perspective we see gaps in, harmonizing of approaches and the need for better dialogue among different partners. But it might take a conversation with these good English writers for you to actually be able to nail down some of the issues that are pertinent in Karamoja. These are just my thoughts based on our interactions with yourselves and the visits we make to the field.
There's another question here.
Yes, please.
Yes, I just have two brief questions. You mentioned it's lot one, you're looking at accountability of local governments. As we all know, local governments in Uganda receive a smaller fraction of the budget. And for example, in regions in northern Uganda, you find there's NUSAF, there's DINU, there are such projects. And I don't know, are they included in the accountability evaluations, or can they be included? And then, yeah, I think for me, the second question was, for example, you see like in this room, you can find there's so many NGOs represented, and you'll find many of them, or most of the NGOs are doing, they may be doing projects differently, but they may be doing projects in similar thematic areas. So for example, is there a way for EU to encourage consortiums in its future calls for proposals, because you find that it ends up creating competition and it ends up creating duplication. And this is what we're seeing even with government MDAs. So that's just, those are two issues that I wanted to raise.
Okay, we note those, although I don't know how you are suggesting NUSAF and DINO and the likes be included. I think it's you people to tell us. Do you see a space for them in your proposed action? Do you see a space for them? It's you to tell us and have these conversations with them. DINO is an EU-funded program, and we work closely together in-house. That's what I can tell you. At least we speak, and they know what we're doing, and they have a huge component for civil society, which we also guided. We guided their selection and the way they planned it all out. So can we go, another question?
Yes, I'm requesting we go back to the slide of PADO.
Okay.
No, the next one, which has text for PADO. So my question is that if you're already a user of PADO and you have the Europa Aid ID, is it mandatory to update that information, and is there a provision for that? For instance, I see a copy of the applicant's latest accounts.
In case you have modified or you have updated your records, please do the update. But if the information is still the same, then there is no need for updates. But if you have current, if maybe the name has changed, if you have new accounting records, profit and loss, then definitely you need to upload the current status. Thank you. But the Europe Aid number stays the same.
There's another question here. Let's go.
Thank you so much. My name is Bernard. I'm from Miyako. My concern is on funding. If a lead applicant applies and is successful, is it possible for it also to sub-grant a grassroots CSO? And what is the funding limit? Then another issue is, suppose I have a login, then I can access the application. Is it still eligible for me to apply for PADOA? Thank you so much.
Okay. Sub-granting, we will look at financial support. Sub-grant, you must justify the reason for sub-granting. Please, when you're looking at this call for proposal, look at the activities, like Elizabeth has said, and the objectives, and see, is it really necessary? We cannot give you all the information, but what I would also kindly request is that there are some questions which automatic answers may not be got. Since the clarification date has been extended, like I have mentioned earlier, please send in those questions so that we respond to them properly in writing. Thank you.
Maybe another thing I can add on is that sub-granting is accepted, but the maximum I think is 60,000 euros.
Yes, financial support. Yeah.
But of course it has also be justified. So it should not be a main activity. There are some questions online. You have them, maybe you need to look at them and respond.
I have
yes.
my WhatsApp here. There are several. My goodness. There are several. But again, by looking through the questions, even when I sat with Edith there, just scrolling through, one thing I can see is that the majority have not read the guidelines, sadly. So it's, you know, we could go round and round this mountain until we are caught up by time. It's important you look at the guidelines, read them carefully, and you'll be surprised that all the answers are there. A lot of the issues you're inquiring about, especially on very structural issues, financing, being a co-grantee, how much to give out, things like that. You'll be surprised. These answers are fixed. They are pretty much fixed, and they are in the guidelines already. And even where they are not directly in the guidelines, there is Annex, I think it's Annex 2, which is the general conditions, which have a lot of your answers already there. But I'll just take a few and see, like for example, the issue of co-funding. The question of co-funding, I know Jackie will tackle it later on, but in principle, the co-funding is cash. It is what it is, cash. It will be cash, not in the bank, but at the time of your accounting, it will be cash. So, yes, we have chosen that option, and it is the way we chose it. And you will look at me and say, but Elizabeth, we have discussed this as civil society many times, we don't have that money. The challenge we have in Uganda is the standardization of costs. Now, the co-funding mechanism that the EU uses would require some kind of national standardization of certain costs. And unfortunately, we don't have that in Uganda. My finance colleague is here, only that she's shy to tell you how much I pushed for that, but it's the way our economy is designed. There is no standardization of costs. So co-funding in kind becomes very difficult because someone in Karamoja will give you a different price, someone in Gulu will give you a different price, someone in Yumbe, it will be different. Someone in Butaleja, Iganga, Dinda, it will be different. You see what I mean? So if a cost for a vehicle was standard in Uganda, this is the cost, it is known. This is the cost for a rental. High income, mid income, low income, it's standard. This is it. So it becomes easier. You just go to that OBOS website, pick that, and say it is standardized, but it is not being standardized. And probably that's an advocacy issue for UCSOs over the next 2 years. Time. I'm really nervous about time. We still have a couple of, I think, important slides to go with. And a number of the questions here are on co-funding. Vehicle, can we have all these as co-funding? I see microcredits are ineligible, cash transfers otherwise eligible. There's a lot of interest around these cash transfers and microcredit and revolving funds. But what we shall do, we shall publish all these questions and respond to them in writing. You have up to the 17th, I believe, to ask these questions in as much detail as you wish. You have up to deadline for requesting. Yes, you have up to the 17th of May to ask us all these questions in writing at the same email that you registered at, and then we shall issue detailed responses on the 26th of May. Okay? There was one last hand there. There's a hand there.
Yes, please. This is Roberto from North-South Cooperation. Can you hear me?
Is that an online? Okay, he came in. Okay, it's okay. Let me take the online. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. My question concerns the percentage of the EU contribution. So I understand what you said, that the criterion is that you said that you are legally registered in Uganda.
Yes.
Now, the EU, I need to clarify. For example, if we, as lead applicant, we are not registered in Uganda, but the co-applicant is registered in Uganda, can we request 95% of the EU contribution? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go back to my guidelines, that page. That is the hottest question. I think we need to issue it very, very clearly again. I think we are going to write on this question, but I believe those percentages refer to the lead applicant. It is the lead applicant that signs the contract on behalf of whether it's a consortia or a partnership. Okay? Whether it's 80% or 50% or 95%, the percentages are arrived at based on the characteristic of the lead applicant. Okay. I hope that is clear.
Yes. I am called Oscar Okech Kanyangareng, founder and executive director of Pastoralism and Poverty Frontiers. Now, you will say that the small organizations should look for big organizations that know how to write good English and partner with them. Now,
you see how you can change our words even when we are here. That is why for some of these issues we are saying we will write.
Yes. So, my question is, I'm already one person who knows how to write good English because I've written several successful proposals to European Union, including one for 4.2 million euros when I was working with AMREF. Now, my question is, when it comes to eligibility, EU says that the co-applicant should meet the same eligibility criteria as the lead applicant. So, yet the eligibility criteria is stringent. So if you know how to write good English like me, that eligibility criteria will still knock you out because you cannot be this. So why don't you be like other donors who they leave the qualification of the co-applicants to the lead applicant? How you select your partners, use your own criteria. Like international NGOs, like they have their criteria for partnerships, and they use it to select their applicants, co-applicants rather. But the EU says co-applicants should meet the same eligibility criteria as the lead applicant. So that knocks out the small organizations still. Thank you. If you know how to write good English like me.
Okay. Okay. I think every development partner has set its own criteria based on a number of issues back home. At delegation level, we are not the implementers. We are implementers of templates of guidelines that have been decided on, also by our headquarters, and for very good reason. And believe me, we have come a long way. I don't want to delve into details of progress we've made in, trying to ease the process. But yes, the EU is very specific in the requirements. And suffice it to say that there are many small organizations who have ebbed the tide and won these grants. Small NGOs, small national organizations which have won these grants on pure, quality of their submissions. You will be surprised. Some of them are right in this room. I cannot mention them, but yes, sometimes they surprise us. At the end of the tunnel, you are surprised when you see the big organizations fall early in the process and the small ones keep going to the end. Okay, let's run on. We try to run on and finish. I don't know. We might have to ask a few more minutes after midday. We are at the concept note format. Yes, where the slide before. Yes, there. No, the slide after. Yes, there, right there. These you already have in the guidelines, which do yourselves a favor, do your organization a duty, read your guidelines. Because what we're going through really is just about following the instructions. Remember to express your lot of interest. Now, this comes back to someone who asks, can I do a cross-lot submission? a little bit of 1, a little bit of 2, a little bit of 3. You need to specifically allocate your lot, because even at the time of evaluation, we have the different lots in different piles before the evaluation actually begins. And the different lots are allocated different financial resources. So how do we harmonize? There are so many, cross-cutting administrative issues that split the different lots separate. So you need to indicate very specifically which lot you are making an application for. And again, on writing, your submission cannot exceed 5 pages. And you are also obliged to use a specific font size, Arial 10. Please, funding decisions are made with a head. I know this is very annoying to say, but you just have to write well and don't exceed 5 pages. Your different sub-regions do have different challenges. I tell you, there are problems I see in Busoga I have never seen anywhere in the world. There are problems you find in Kitgum and you are left in utter shock. So your different areas have those different peculiarities, but it doesn't mean you spend 2 pages elaborating your different challenges. Okay? If you are given space for quarter page, use your words, select your words wisely. It is a competition. Okay? And what I've also seen is some applicants reducing the font size. That on the other side, before we start reading, we need to first increase the font size. Also, this is not right. You're tweaking the set guidelines, and stick with the font size. You can write well, as our colleague already there said. You can write well, and the writing must be in English, not slang, not local language. It must be in English, well typed. And some of these points seem obvious, but it is not. Follow carefully the checklist. There is a checklist that enables you also to check your work. Have I done this? Have I done the other? Have I included this? Have I included that? It helps you. And it's, as has already been said, it's better to start early so that you can run these checks on yourself. And if you need to make any changes, you can. It would also be very nice if you could have your first shot early enough that if you notice you still have questions before the 17th, you can still send them in. On the next slide, which is the concept note content. There you talk about the description of the action. You talk about your relevance. Then, of course, you have information from you have the information, we shall have your information already from prospect, you have put it in. We'll have your basic details, which you have already put in. And spend some time, give yourself some time to write about the relevance of your action. Basically, your marketing, your project, your intervention. Two pages plus 3 pages, and the rest, I think, annexes. Jackie, correct me if I'm wrong. The rest annexes are PADO. There is already material in PADO. There will be material about you in prospect. So when we download, we can pick it up from there. Now we go to the concept note, the next slide, concept note administrative checklist. This checklist is also available to you in the concept note application form. You find it at the back, but before you submit, you just remove it. It's just there to guide you. For those who have taken a look already, you've seen it. It just guides you. It just helps you to check yourself that you've used the correct form, that you followed the instructions, that your proposal is typed and written in uneligible language, okay? That an electronic version is there. Now, it does happen that there are some applicants who are completely unable to make a submission in prospect. There are exceptions, Most of you are already absolutely digitally savvy, but there's areas in Uganda where applicants will be writing from which have serious network challenges, and they're completely unable to submit anything in prospect. And of course, it's governed also, it's you know, the common practice of submitting at the last minute. Then you realize the system has failed, you are 3 hours, you are still in Kitgum or Lamore, for that matter. Then you think the bus will get, you know, you have all these issues. You had almost 2 months to submit and you're rushing to do it with 5 hours to the end of the deadline. And then the system fails. What do? You submit manually, okay? And then if you are submitting manually, Jackie will talk a bit about how to do that, the date on the submission envelope. Make sure you follow the rules and have 1 copy, 1 original, 1 copy. Follow the guidelines. And make sure the declaration is signed by the applicant. Some of you submit the declaration and in a rush, you just write the name of the CD. Make sure it's signed. Make sure it's signed. We go to the next slide. We are going through these issues that may seem common sense issues, but I think it will get more interesting when we come to the subsequent slides. Make sure the action is implemented in uneligible. Here we have country, we just picked out the template, but uneligible sub-region. If you are located in Noya, for example, don't slide in Masindi and think we won't see. And say we shall work in Noya and Masindi. And just hope and pray, and you fast for 7 days that the evaluators will not notice. We will pick it up. Or you put in Jinja and then you slide in Mukono. We will pick it up. So just make sure that you have picked the right eligible regions, sub-regions, or you put in Tororo, and then you put in Mbale or Sironko. Bugisu sub-region is not eligible, okay? And then, or in some cases, someone puts a completely ineligible, we've had also this, ineligible sub-region. You pick a region completely outside, and you apply, and you get a very high-ranking government official to put a cover note. You will be disqualified. Very politely, we'll write back to you, though. Make sure it has the minimum requirements. If, for example, like we have indicated that at least 2 districts, for purposes of cost effectiveness, you can't put all that 600,000 just in 1 district. At least for cost effectiveness, spread it in 2. Even for learning purposes, let's have it in 2 districts. Make sure you have the right duration. 24 months minimum, 48 months maximum, okay? 18 months is not allowed. Don't say, Madam, we are doing very high-tech interventions with youth on digitalization and these things are costly. 24 months is the minimum. We will pick it up. And be sure about the EU proportions. There are proportions of funding and co-funding. That there is a deal breaker. Man, we see people knocked out for getting the percentages wrong, and yet their proposal was so good. Please, just get it right. And that there, because that is keyed in at the entry, before even evaluation starts. We get in the proportions. How much are they asking? How much are they putting in? Right there. And the system will tell us whether knock them out or keep them in. On day 1. That's on day 1. Now we go to the next slide, which is actually the concept note evaluation. You know, someone asked that, why can't we be like the other donors? You know, we are such a good a partner that we have even given you the checklist. How we are going to mark is right there. So you know where to concentrate your efforts. The concept note evaluation. Oh, questions? Questions?
Thank you. This is not a question, but just to seek clarity on if that self-checklist evaluation will be part of the application form.
No. Actually, you find it on the concept note template. If you printed it out, you find it there at the end. And there is a clear note that says, remove this before submitting.
Thank you.
Okay. So we go to the concept note evaluation. There's another question.
There's another question.
Yes, I know that you have guidelines and all that. What I've seen in Africa, people operate on pressure. And for example, if you have 2 dates, I'm not saying in this one, but maybe in the future, if for example a deadline is 31st and you tell people, okay, NGOs that submit by 25th can access, for example, a certain percentage of funding. I believe you'll get more people submitting before the deadline, because I know that people are not children, but the truth is in Africa people operate under pressure and what?
We are trying to change Africa.
And I'm sure Elizabeth is not short of applicants.
Yes, we are not short of, by the way, we are never short of applicants, and we are trying to change that narrative. I really encourage you to submit at least a day before. Nobody will pick your application and give it to your competitor. It will not happen. The system will not allow us to download anything before the deadline. So I cannot even go in and check, oh, I'm very passionate about this organization. Did they apply? I can't, the system won't allow me. Till the deadline, then it says bingo. There's one administrator who will go in there and tell us, you have received maybe 120 applications, and then we prepare the opening. You know, evaluators, or whether it's me or Thomas or other people, are only given rights after the deadline. So I don't want to dampen your hopes, but you need to keep the deadline. It's very serious. And there's one person who has sent a question asking, can I submit both manually and electronically, just in case? The answer is no. You submit, choose one. Okay, just choose one. Yes, Tom.
There's one application here.
Yes, please.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Question, sorry.
Thank you very much, Madam Elizabeth. My question is on the costing. You say you also know the costing per youth, it's quite expensive in these regions. Is there a recommended cost per youth in case we are working in lot 2 and lot 3 in terms of apprenticeship and working in other regions? You touched it in the beginning, in case we want to work, let's say, with TVETs and they are not in the sub-regions we've picked in the districts. If we need to cross over, is there a recommended cost, minimum or maximum per youth? Thank you.
I will answer you directly. There is none. There is none, but bear in mind this is a competition. If your unit cost is 2,000 euros per young person, and your competition has a unit cost of 40 euro, we check those things. We do check thoroughly, especially at the full proposal writing stage. That's when now you're dealing with the potential winners. So we'll check that and be really careful about that, and try to find, it's mentioned actually in the guidelines, innovative and cost-effective methodologies. Yes.
Thank you very much. I have a question around budgeting and the co-financing. I know budgets will come in at the proposal level. Is there room for me to make changes from what I've submitted in my concept note? Then if things change along the way, by the time I submit the proposal, will there be room for me to make those changes? Or should we just leave out budget and costs at this concept note level?
Let Jackie give you the details.
In the guidelines, there is a room for variation. You are allowed 20% variation from the budget, but if you've asked for a maximum, let's say, of 600,000 euros, you cannot increase it. It has to come down when using the math. If you've asked for 400,000, you can go up by 20%. And then it also allows you to remove a co-applicant, but you must give justification proper justification to verify why, but it is allowed.
So you can also remove a co-applicant, just imagine. But you can't say it's just because we had a fight the other day, but, which is very common in your partnerships. It's very, very common. In fact, it's unusual if you don't have a fight. So it's, look critically at your choice of co-applicant and select wisely. So can we go on to the actual examination sheet, the evaluation sheet? We'll look at the relevance of your action. We will check the relevance based on what you're telling us, and the evaluators and assessors that are selected for this call, they have already been identified, are knowledgeable about Uganda. So there is no chance. So forget about, in the past, we've had people tell us, no, you are choosing, you are from Europe, you don't know what is happening in Uganda. We are a mixed team, and there are people who are very, very knowledgeable about Uganda's context. And it's a diverse team where we have people from all sectors, such that if you have a question about one issue, you can also consult on if someone wants to deal in energy or wants to write about energy saving something or pastoralism. There are people who are proficient in those topics. So please check the relevance of your, we will check the relevance of your project. We will check it thoroughly. And then the design. That there, the design, is what we always see as the deal breaker. You need to think carefully about your objectives. Think carefully about your objectives. Now, as a development worker, I would discourage you to have 6 objectives or 8 objectives. It might seem obvious, but have a number that is manageable, that is coherent, and can convince the panel. These are people who've worked in development for 20, 30 years. They understand these issues. So your design is really the deal breaker. It is the project. The evaluation committee will look critically at the issues of the log frame. Yes, at concept note, you don't have a log frame per se, but the design is what actually is the log frame. So be careful how you select your objectives and your targets and things like that. And some people come with ridiculous targets. You know, I will target 20,000 teenage girls, pregnant girls in this county. Are they there in that county? Are there 20,000 teenage girls in that one sub-county you want to deal with? You know, there are things which at times seem a bit outlandish, but let's try to be feasible. Present something that's feasible. Be yourself. You know, don't talk like you are building a space station in Uganda. There are times we read proposals that are so unrealistic that we are left in awe of how, you know, partners at times may not take this really serious, but be realistic, be yourself. You know your organizations. Your organizations have striking or very good elements. As they say in English, put your best foot forward. You know the strong elements of your organization, of your methodologies that you have designed, of your activities. You can bring in something, innovation, something completely new and different, but you know yourselves, and we know you, and we know you. So let's be feasible and realistic. So that's really in a nutshell. So if you skip the next slide, and I don't know if there are any questions on that. Possibly one thing I need to emphasize is the issue of added value. What added value will your project bring to the setting that you're working in? Spend some time there. Normally people, organizations just sign it off with, we will do this, we'll have gender sensitive technologies. What does that mean? You know? just because you have to push in those words, those catchwords, will have a human rights and gender sensitive approaches they will be used. So what does it mean? So you need to take it a bit more from there. And then the issue of cross-cutting elements. It's very common. The last sentence usually for concept notes, which I see, is there will be consideration for environmental sensitivity and gender sensitivity, and also persons with disabilities and those with HIV will be fully brought on board. It's normally a final sentence. But how, yes, you have just mentioned the cross-cutting themes. You could say a little bit more. 3 lines could give us an indication. How are you going to handle the gender or the cross-cutting themes, or added value? Let me stop there for now. Jackie, you take us on the budget. We're not doing well on time, but it is what it is. The guidelines are here in case you need to refer to them.
Sorry, we are really trying to make sure that we manage time, and sometimes if we are too fast, please let us know. So I am going to talk briefly about the budget. This will come in handy at the second stage when the letters of invitation have been sent out to you for those successful, and you're required to submit a full budget. Please use the annex that has been uploaded on the websites. Do not modify the annex, please. Use it as it is, insert your unit values, your number of units, arithmetical calculations. Please go through all that to make sure that you have presented a proper budget. The common mistakes are you can have arithmetical errors, or you've punched in the wrong amounts. Then the currency that is supposed to be used is euros, so please don't give us a budget in Uganda shillings. Use the euro and applicable exchange rate to avoid disqualification. Secondly, is estimates at concept note stage cannot vary more than 20%. This one we've already tackled with a question that came up, as in what can be modified. We can also modify the time frame, the duration of the action. You can either, if you've put 24, you're allowed to change to 26, but you give justification, or 48 and less. It can't be more. Then co-financing, the balance has to come from other sources other than the EU budget, and we've already spoken about this. Then we look at why we emphasize eligibility is that we don't want to enter into a grant contract with you, and then at the end of the action we are telling you that the results of the activities are ineligible and you have to refund the money. We emphasize on reading Article Annex 2, the general conditions. Please go through them when you're drawing up your activities for the budget in line with the objectives that you will have presented in your concept note and full proposal. Please go through the eligibility criteria. So we also give examples under Article 14 of the general conditions. We emphasize cost of staff assigned to the action. Many of you are civil society organizations, and you can be handling different projects at different times. That means handling different actions. Only specify the staff that are used for implementing this action in the budget. There are different budget lines. There is for human resource, there is travel, there is purchase of equipment. Please put the appropriate activities in the correct place. Costs which are also eligible, we have equipment, new and used supplies, specifically for the purposes of the action. You will see that we are emphasizing activities related to the action, because any activity that is not related to the implementation of the action will be declared ineligible, and if granted and contracted at the stage of contracting, we will request refunds if the activities are declared ineligible. So please, It is a continuous process of reading. Please always refer to the general conditions. It breaks down all the eligible costs. We have costs of consumables, costs of services, supply and work contracts awarded by the beneficiaries for the purpose of the action. Eligible costs also include those derived directly from the requirements of the contract. For example, we will have evaluation costs, dissemination of information, audit. All those are eligible provided they are for the action. Then we have duties and taxes and charges, including VAT paid and not recoverable by the beneficiaries. We continue, the list is endless, as in with eligible costs. These costs must be incurred during the implementation of the action. This information we are now disseminating and passing on to you is for when we are at the contracting level, and we want to emphasize that please, when your contract is for 24 months, the implementation period, you cannot have costs outside that implementation period. The eligible costs must be indicated in the overall estimated budget, as in when you're bringing your budget proposal, you have your estimated activities and their costs. They must be necessary for the implementation of the action. That means that there must be a link between the activities and results that are in your concept note, your full proposal, and your budget. They must be identifiable and verifiable. That means they must be recorded in your books of accounting. We encourage you to always keep proper books of accounting, so that for purposes of eligibility, because you see the relationship we have here is based on also trust. How do we verify an activity has happened? You will put it in the budget, but where is your documentation? If you do not have documentation, proper documentation recorded, proper procurement manuals, proper financial policies, then you will end up having ineligible costs. So we really request you to have all those records and properly recorded. The eligible costs must comply with the requirements of applicable tax and social security legislation. They must be reasonable, justified, and comply with the requirements of sound financial management. And in this sound financial management, we are looking at the concept of the triple E: efficiency, effectiveness, and economy. Economy, you're looking at the cost. Efficiency, is the activity effective? Is it going to fulfill its purpose? Please let me know if I'm going too fast. So we go on further to enlighten you on how reimbursement of these eligible costs may be best. They may be based on actual costs incurred by the beneficiaries and affiliated entities, or they may use the option of simplified cost options. Please read guidelines 2.1.4 and Annex K and the budget to enlighten yourselves more about these simplified cost options. And we have three forms. We have the unit costs. These are clearly identified costs, which you will put a unit and a unit value plus the total amount. Then we have lump sum costs. These are global terms of eligible costs, also clearly identified. Then you can have the flat rate financing, applying a percentage fixed. And all these notes are in the annexes. They have been given to you. So please, as I kindly request you and plead with you, go back and read. Those annexes are not for decoration, they are for you. So we come to the next slide, where we are talking of financial support, where some of you are asking about sub-granting. The maximum amount per sub-grant is 60,000 euros, although it can be lower, but this should not be the main purpose of the action. Thomas already mentioned this, but if you want to put this in your proposal, you must state the objectives and results should be clearly spelled out. The types of activities under what this is going to be funded should be spelled out. Types of organizations who receive this support, you must specify. You must give us the criteria you have used for selection of a partner stroke amount. You must mention the maximum amount which may be given. So, when dealing with financial support to third parties, please have that in mind and please mention it in your concept note vis-a-vis your full application for the justification. So we continue with ineligible costs. Here we also give you examples of costs which are ineligible, that the EU does not fund. It does not fund debts and debt service charges, in brackets interest, provision for losses or potential future liabilities, the EU does not fund, costs declared by the beneficiary and financed by another action or work program receiving a European Union grant is ineligible. I will emphasize this. CSOs, please do not do double financing, co-financing. If you are getting funds to fund another project, do not use them when they are from the EU and then you're saying that it is from your own private source, because when the auditors come to do the audit verification reports and bring it out, it is not good. So please bear this in mind when drawing up your private costs. Purchases of land or buildings, except where necessary for the implementation of the action, is ineligible. Currency exchange losses, unfortunately, are ineligible. Credit to third parties, and salary costs of the personnel of national administrations. All those costs are ineligible. But all these are in our annexes, so I keep on emphasizing. Please read the annexes, read the guidelines, and you will be achievers. So we move to the next slide. We have contributions in kind. The definition is these are provision of goods or services to a beneficiary or affiliated entity free of charge by a third party. As contributions in kind do not involve any expenditure for a beneficiary or affiliated entity, they are not eligible costs. They may not be treated as co-financing. And if the description of the action as proposed includes contributions in kind, the contributions have to be made. But unfortunately, for purposes of this call, contributions in kind may not be treated as co-financing. So we go to the second last slide. The communications and timetable, like I have mentioned before, there is a corrigendum coming up. Please check the deadlines and apply them. And like Elizabeth has said, I kindly ask you, do not wait for the last minute to upload. Please go ahead and submit your applications before the deadlines so that you are successful. And I will end by saying I wish you the best, and please keep reading our websites for more information. Thank you very much.
The last slide, on ethics and code of conduct. Now, unlike previous calls for proposals, this time we have been obligated or obliged by our headquarters to emphasize this issue. The issue of ethics and code of conduct has, at times is taken for granted. It's one of those pages in the guidelines that is quickly read and ignored. But this time round, especially for those who will make it to the full proposal stage. We will check this very carefully, and we will also check very carefully during the project implementation that there is utmost compliance to ethics and code of conduct. These issues, the first issue is the conflict of interest. I think you pretty much understand what that means. It may happen that there is an inevitable conflict of interest. My assumption is your organizations do have guidelines or policies on conflict of interest, and that there will be compliance to those guidelines. An assumption is that conflict of interest will be declared. In our case, in the EU delegation, if it happens that I realize I have a conflict of interest, I declare this in writing to my supervisor. But this is something that we request that you take very seriously. Equally important is the whole issue of respect for human rights, environmental legislations, and core labor standards. You know, all this includes the issue of having zero tolerance for sexual exploitation, abuse, and harassment. Human rights and core labor standards. Even as I say this, at times, I remember a lot of experiences we've had with some partners on issues of labor rights. And I particularly draw your attention to the way budgets are drawn, budgets are written. We are usually left in amazement how chief executives of CSOs may be earning up to the tune of 15,000 euros, and then the next 15,000 euro a month. And the next in line to them, a program officer, is paid 300 euros. Those are issues of labor rights. Those are issues of your organization policies. But it is something that we are going to look really carefully at as we undertake the evaluations. There are some organizations we've called back for a subsequent discussion where we've had organizations reach the final point of at the full proposal stage. And there are some staff members, some junior clerical staff members that are paid 30 euro a month, 30 euro, paid out of EU resources. I mean, just look at the hierarchy. Now, in the past, you may have got away with this, but we are not dictating that you go back and overhaul your pay structure. But I'm just putting you on notice that it's going to be an issue. Okay? And I have been categorically asked to emphasize this by my hierarchy. Why is there silence in the room? Okay. I have poked a hornet's nest. Is that what they say? Okay. But so these are some of the issues that when we talk about using a human rights, a rights-based approach, so it starts with us, okay? It starts with us. So pay attention to the labor rights issues and be sensitized about them. Be aware that if you are hiring Ugandan employees, they are governed by local statutes, the local laws that oblige you to make statutory payments of tax, of NSSF, and to actually look after them. There's workman's compensation. Let me underline that there's workman's compensation. Staff having accidents while on job, and they're immediately terminated, and they're under our actions. I think there are guidelines for this. I'm asking you to pay attention to this. If you're not aware, it may happen that you're not aware as the CEO of these things. But please take a look, find out, from your finance, head of finance, or you can Google, find out about labor laws in Uganda. Kampala City Council has a labor office. You can find out the details there. They will have the whole package of labor laws, which would still apply whether you're operating in Lamore, in Kapela Byong, or in Yumbe or Zombo. The same laws will apply, okay? I hope, please don't send me emails telling me you are such a nasty person. At times I get really interesting WhatsApp messages, but okay. Then there's a point on anti-corruption and anti-bribery. I have never got so many good wishes as I got this last Easter on my WhatsApp phone. I have got many, many, many good wishes for Easter from civil society organizations. That was after we launched the call for proposal. Before that, my phone number is public. You can send me, people ask me all sorts of questions. But I got very many good wishes for Easter. Not financial wishes, but just felicitations, greetings. I was amazed at how popular I became after the call was launched. Now, all these are door openers for issues of potential conflict of interest and corruption. So I'm just pointing it out to you that please be careful. There are rules governing this, governing conflict of interest, etc., etc. There's also the issue that we wish to underline of, that we ask you to pay attention to, unusual commercial expenses or activities. Now, the way it works, someone actually, this will answer somebody's question that we had already in the list, that it seems the organization has to spend and the EU refunds. No, what happens initially is if you win the grant, the moment you sign the contract, you get immediately, is it 100% or 80%? The contribution for year one, you get your lump sum. Now, there might be a tendency, forgive me for becoming very Ugandan, or for doing a China Uganda, and what they call okunaza musente, okuzinaza, where the money is quickly, what do I call, is put in an activity that generates quick money before it's returned back to the project account, okay? We are flagging all these issues to you based on our experience. These clauses have existed, but we've not had to emphasize them like we're doing now, because what we are seeing is more and more tendency to do this. So if we realize unusual economic activity, money hits the account today, Friday afternoon, on Monday it's picked, and it's brought back after 2 months. All of it, lump sum picked, lump sum returned. That's quite unusual, okay? And most probably that is for those kind of activities. And just bringing to your attention that some of these activities may look silent, but they're easily picked up by auditors verifying your accounts. We don't have audits per se, but you'll have an auditor verifying your expenses after 1 year. So we are bringing that to your attention, that we will easily pick that up also. And also where there's been a breach of obligations, there are irregularities and their fraud. Let me first talk about the breach of obligations. Many of you come into this, many of you apply as partners. You have a lead partner, you have maybe a co-applicant, and the issue of obligations. There are cases where the lead applicant does not fulfill their obligations to their partners. When the EU gets a budget, it shows the lead applicant will have this amount of money. The co-applicant will also be allocated this amount. 4 staff will be paid for, etc., etc. Now, we've got complaints that 6 months down the line, a co-applicant has not received any money for any activities. We do have those on our place. And listen to me, if you're a co-applicant, you have every right to bring it to our attention that there has been a breach of your own internal. I can feel the silence. Okay. I know it doesn't apply to you. I'm just mentioning it. In one case in the past, it got so bad that one RDC was sucked in, it became a police case, and 2 years down the line, a co-applicant had never received any money. 2 years into a 3-year-old project. So some of these issues look simple, but you blacklist yourself. This is a simple, very quick way of blacklisting your organization. And we also point to the issue of obligations to the development partner, to us. The expectation is that you comply with the contract you have signed, you submit reports in time. Where you have challenges on submitting reports in time, you let us know. If there's an issue, don't wait for the deadline to pass yesterday, and then you pick up or send me a WhatsApp message, of course, starting with very good wishes and greetings about the delayed report. I get a lot of these. And please, just send an email 1 month to and tell us, listen, we are not going to make the deadline. Even 2 weeks to, 1 week to, we are not going to make the deadline. We have a few challenges. You don't have to go into details. We have a few challenges. Just let us know immediately, and we'll put it in the system, because the system flags that you are due, and then it will keep red flagging. So we have to remove that notification from the system, and you're not penalized when you bring back a report late. So the issues of general irregularities and fraud in organizations, these things do happen. They happen to civil society, much as we are the watchdogs of the public sector. At times, there are outrageous things that happen within our organizations that I don't even want to talk about now, but you know these things. So I'm just pointing out these issues. But please do pay particular attention to personnel issues. It is becoming embarrassing when people say, but the EU, you talk about human rights, and for me, I'm a program assistant and I'm paid 30 euros a month. It becomes, have some sort of standard. I'm not telling you go and change your pay structure, but have something a bit which reflects the equity that you would like to reflect also in the communities you work in. I hope those points are clear. Unless there are burning questions, we have a list of questions we would never finish answering today. So what we are going to do is we are going to put this all down and respond by the 17th, is it? No, by the 26th of May. So you have up to the 17th of May to ask us questions. Use the same functional mailbox that you used when you were, registering for this meeting. Unless there are burning questions, we want to bring this to a close. As we said before, no additional administrative expenses are covered by the EU delegation. You meet your own transport expenses coming here. And yes, and we stop here. We don't do lunch. We normally have break tea, and that's it. That's why we try to finish at midday. There's a question here. We had said we keep a microphone here because there's a constant barrage of questions from this table here.
Thank you so much,
For those who are
Elizabeth.
leaving, just a minute, for those who are leaving, thank you very much for coming. Please make sure you have your emails recorded there so that we can share with you. Some people have asked for the slides. We can share with you the slides. If you're interested in the road, do people still want the roadmap, EU's strategic plan? We can also share that with you. We shall share an abridged version, the shorter version. And what other documents? It's just the slides plus that. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth. I have two questions. One, I know you indicated that the choice of the lots was based or areas that we are looking at was based on the studies, but I wanted to know whether there is any particular research that had been undertaken that informed the decision to select these three areas or lots. And then the other question is around when does the EU intend to award this program? Thank you.
Another question? Okay, we don't have a specific study. As you heard our head of section, he mentioned that, there were various consultations with you people last year. And I mentioned that we use UBOS reports, which are public documents, even for you. I would expect that civil society does go to the UBOS website at least once a month to check what's latest. And you can even just Google poorest regions in Uganda. This will come up for you. Regions with highest teenage pregnancies in Uganda. Or you can go to the UNFPA website to look at the status of teenage pregnancies. So these are documents and information in the public domain. We don't have a specific study we do as the EU. And let me emphasize that ours is a contribution. I know there are many people that are still bitter with us, who have told us, you did not pick my region. That will not end, and we don't have easy solutions. We don't have any solution for that. The money is not enough to reach your region, and maybe your region does not have enough poor. So let's leave it at that. We work with these regions that have been selected and see how it goes. And there are other budget lines that actually cover other regions in Uganda. There are other projects that are national. I know EIDHR has worked in Western Uganda, in parts of Western Uganda. And I don't know if they also ask you that question, that why didn't you pick the other regions? Is that question, does it come up?
Of course it comes. The needs are enormous. The resources are limited. And so therefore, a particular core is for a particular region, a particular area, given the priorities at the time. So we are cognizant of some of those things, except that, of course, we have limited resources. So in the question of whether, I think it might be too late now at this time to discuss or change the regions where this core is focused.
Okay, thank you. And you had another question? Okay, when the grants are going to be awarded? You guys, this timetable is there in your guidelines. Roughly, the contract signature, the award will be around, this is the amended notification of award, around sometime early October. That's estimated, but you have this in your guidelines. There's a timetable, and we're publishing a revised one which extends everything just by 1 week, okay? So roughly early October, some of you will get early independence present. Yeah, and we wish you all the best as you look forward to that early independence present. So hopefully in early November, so when you awarded the contract, what happens is we assess your concept notes, then we write back, we agree on the number. The number is how many times 3? The amount times 3. So what happens is you write your concept notes, and then I think there are people distracting the meeting. And then the next thing is we select the number of concept notes that equals the value, that's 5 million times 3, 15, up to the tune of 15 million euros. Which means there are 3 applicants competing for every estimate 1 slot, okay? That's on average. So the competition eases at the full proposal stage, so you're approximately 3 competing for one grant slot. And, but that's just really a quick, rough estimate, because remember, each lot has a different value. So we will pick, each will go lot by lot and see. But again, it depends also on the quality of proposals. We will not pick just to pick. It has to have met a certain minimum standard. So after that, then at the same time as we are notifying those who have been successful, we also notify those that have not been successful. And we give you like 1 or 2 reasons why. And immediately we will ask those who have been successful to submit full applications. Okay? And we give them approximately a month, approximately information to lead applicants for full, approximately 2 months, to write the full proposal. And then we evaluate it again, and then that's when we give you the information that you have been successful or not. And what happens is we draw up a list of the top so many, maybe 10, and then there are some that are put on reserve list. If the first person or someone drops out of the list, or at the 11th hour, there is an aspect of ineligibility discovered, even after they've made it this far, then they are also disqualified. So the reserve list member moves up to replace them. So that's just how it works. And then you awarded the contract, and our expectation is that those who sign early can even already start, in December. So that's just the way it works. And this, we will not do a call next year. We'll have a call probably. We have received an allocation for next year, but one. Next year we didn't get any money. So that's just the way headquarters has done it. This year you get, next year you don't. So those of us who got, there are delegations which did not get an allocation for this year. So it's just staggered like that. And it's in a public document on the headquarters website of how much Uganda got. So we have money for 2024. We can't tell you yet how we'll use it. Some are saying maybe for the future, we can't tell. Things could change, okay? So thank you very much. There was a question. Oh, Richard. It's answered. Oh, okay. So thank you very much for being excellent participants. And I'm asking us to give a big hand of clap for our IT team. They've been excellent. This service has been provided by the hotel. I didn't know they go this far. And we're really impressed by the services they have given us. Thank you very much to our online participants also. We've not had a chance to hear much from you, but we've taken note of your questions, and we shall reply on the 24th of May. So don't worry, I'll not get the date wrong. Jackie won't let me. So thank you very much. We bring this meeting to a close. And safe journeys from wherever you are coming from. Don't feel shy if you need my phone number to send me greetings. Don't feel shy. You've stopped. And, I get a lot of greetings because I am really the face of civil society. So please, you can come and inquire anything. You can have bilaterals. Thomas is here. Thank you very much for coming, and safe travels back. Thank you, IT team. I think we can close down the online. Shut it down. Shut down the meeting. I'll give everybody